Hi, it's Linda with the 1917 cookbook that we're reading through. The cookbook is called 1,000 Ways to Please a Husband, and this is a reprint that I have from Dover Publications. And today we're continuing in the month of July, and I will say that because there are 20-some chapters in July, I am going to need to read 3 chapters today so that I can make it through the month and still share with you month to month in a timely manner. So, Chapter 9, Uncle John and Aunt Lucy make a visit. Uncle John and Aunt Lucy had driven Bob and Bettina home from a Sunday spent in the country. "Do come in," begged Bettina, "and have a little lunch with us. After such a bountiful dinner, we really ought not be hungry, but I confess that the lovely drive home has given me an appetite. And you've never been here for a meal. Don't be frightened, Uncle John. I really thought of this yesterday, and my cupboard isn't entirely bare. It would be so much fun to show you our things and the house." "I'm not afraid I won't be well fed," said Uncle John, "but those clouds are black in the east. If it should rain, we'd have trouble getting home. Besides, I don't like to have the car standing out in a storm." "I don't believe it'll rain, John," said comfortable Aunt Lucy, "and if it does, well, we'll manage somehow. I, for one, would like to see Bettina's kitchen and all the rest of her house," she added. Bettina arranged the dainty little meal on the porch table, and Aunt Lucy and Uncle John sat down with good appetites. "This looks almost too pretty to eat," said he as he looked at his plate with its slice of jellied beef on head lettuce, served with salad dressing, and its fresh, crisp potato chips. And the nasturtium and green leaf lay beside them. "Have a radish and a sandwich, Uncle John," said Bettina. "We have plenty, if not variety. Our only dessert is fresh pears." "But it all tastes mighty good," said Uncle John. "Say, Bob, it is beginning to rain, I believe." "Sure enough, a regular storm. We must put the car in the empty garage across the street. I'm sure we can get permission." And he and Uncle John hurried out. "It will blow over, I'm sure," said Aunt Lucy. "But if it doesn't, why, Aunt Lucy, stay here all night. We'd love to have you. The guest room is always ready. I know you'll be comfortable, and they can manage without you at home for once, I'm sure." "Of course, they'll be all right, and it would be quite exciting to be company for a change, if only Uncle John thinks he can do it." "It looks as if there'll be nothing else to do," said Uncle John when he and Bob returned. "Not but what I'd enjoy it, but I haven't been away from home a night for, how long is it, Lucy?" "7 years last May, John. All the more reason why this'll do you good." "Oh, I'm so glad you'll really stay," said Bettina. "Now tell me what you like for breakfast." "Anything you have except those new-fashioned breakfast foods," Uncle John replied. "I might feed 'em to my stock now, but not to a human being. But don't you worry about me, Betty, because I don't worry about the breakfast proposition. Bob here is a pretty good advertisement of the kind of cooking you can do." The lunch that night consisted of jellied beef, potato chips, radishes, peanut butter sandwiches, iced tea, and fresh pears. All right. We'll talk about the recipes after I read the 3 chapters. Chapter 10, Ruth Inspects Bettina's Kitchen. And this is, by the way, a chapter with an extra page in it compared to some of the others, so it may seem slightly longer. Ruth inspects Bettina's kitchen. "May I come in?" said a voice at the screen door. I came the kitchen way because I hoped that you would still be busy with the morning's work and I might learn something. You see," and Ruth blushed a little, We are thinking of building a house, and we have lots of ideas about every room but the kitchen. Neither Fred nor I know the first thing about that, so I told him that I would just have to consult you." "How dear of you, Ruth," said Bettina as she put away the breakfast dishes. "Well, you shall have the benefit of everything I know. Bob and I began with the kitchen when we planned this little house. It seemed so important. I expected to spend a great deal of time here, and I was determined to have it cheerful and convenient. I never could see why a kitchen should not be a perfectly beautiful room, as beautiful as any in the whole house." "Yours is, Bettina," said Ruth warmly as she looked around her. "No wonder you can cook such fascinating little meals. It is light and sunny and clean looking. Oh, immaculate, and has such a pleasant view." "I wanted it to have lots of sunshine. We had the walls painted this shade of yellow because it seemed pretty and cheerful. Perhaps you won't care to have white woodwork like this, but you see it is plain, and I don't find it hard to keep clean out here on the edge of town. I think it is so pretty that I don't expect to regret my choice. Another thing, Ruth, do get a good grade of inlaid linoleum like this. I know the initial expense is greater, but a good piece will last a long time and will always look well." How high the sink is, Bettina?" 36 inches. You see, I'm not very tall, and yet I have always found that every other sink I tried was too low for solid comfort. The plumbers have a way of making them all alike, 32 inches from the floor, I think. They were scandalized because I asked them to change the regulation height, and yet I find this exactly right. And isn't it a lovely white enameled one? I am happy whenever I look at it. Don't laugh, Ruth. A sink is a very important piece of furniture. I had always liked this kind, with the grooved drainboard on each side, sloping just a little toward the center. And see how easily I can reach up and put away the dishes in the cupboard, you see? I don't like a single dish or utensil in sight when the kitchen is in order. This roll of paper toweling here by the sink is very convenient for wiping off the table or taking grease off pans and dishes, or even for drying glass and silver. A roll lasts a long time and certainly does save dishcloths and towels. Do you use your fireless cooker often? Every day of the year, I do believe. I cook breakfast food in it and all kinds of meats except those that are boiled or fried. Then it is splendid for steaming brown bread and baking beans and oh, so many other things. Mother keeps hers under the kitchen table, but I find it more convenient here at the right of the stove, on a box just level with the stove. Next, oh, neophyte, you may observe the stove. The oven is at the side, high up so that one need not stoop to use it. It has a glass oven door through which I can watch my baking. I like this white enameled table, and the high stool must be convenient too. It is splendid. Ruth, haven't you any old marble-topped table at home? It would be just the thing for pastry making. Yes, I do know of one, I think, and I'll have the lower part enameled white. Fred can do it himself. Let him help to fix things up, and he'll be all the more interested in them and in helping you use them. Bettina, this is an adorable breakfast alcove. What fun you must have every morning. If we have one, I don't believe we'll ever use the dining room. How convenient. Here come the waffles, hot from the stove. Fred, do have a hot muffin. Not at the same meal, Ruth. No, he'll be fortunate if he gets anything to eat at all. He isn't marrying a Bettina, but he says he's satisfied. Bettina, does Bob help get breakfast? Indeed he does. He loves to make coffee in the electric percolator and toast on the toaster. He says that an electric toaster and plenty of bath towels are the real necessities of life. But I say I cannot live without flowers and a fireplace. Oh, you will have such fun, Ruth. Let Fred help you all he will. I'm hearing all this advice. Suddenly, shouted by a big voice in her ear. Look here, Mrs. Bettina, does Bob know that you are advising your friends to train their husbands just as you are training him? Fred, you old eavesdropper, I hope that Ruth makes you get breakfast every single morning to pay for this. Aren't you ashamed? Don't you know that listeners never hear any good of themselves? I suppose Fred knew he needn't worry, said Rosie Ruth as she took his arm. Look, Fred, isn't it a dear little house? May he see it all, Bettina? Yes, if he'll explain how a busy man can get away at this hour of the morning. Well, you see, I was on my way to the office when I caught a glimpse of Ruth's pink dress at your back door. I happened to think that she said she didn't get a recipe for those skyrocket rolls that you had at your party the other day. I just thought I'd have to remind her for the sake of my future. What under the shining sun? Oh, pinwheel biscuits. Yes, that's it. Why, all right, I have it filed away in my card index. Here, with a picture of them pasted on the card. I cut it out of the magazine that gave this recipe. They are delicious. And then the recipe for pinwheel biscuits. To continue with today's extended readings, we have Chapter 11, Bettina's Birthday Gift. You're set, Bob, said Bettina as she gathered up the tennis balls. But please say you think I'm improving. Oh, there'll come a time when I'll make you a stiff opponent, but I'll have to work up my service first. It's time to go home to breakfast now, but hasn't it been fun? Fine, Betty. We'll do it again. I don't object at all to getting up early when I'm once up, and we ought to get out and play tennis before breakfast every day. I knew you'd like it when you'd tried it once, but it took my birthday to make you willing to celebrate this way. Just you wait till you see what I have for you at home. I made it all myself with a little help from Ruth. Oh, Bob, is that what you've been doing all these evenings? I'm so anxious to see it. I've begrudged the time you've spent all alone hammering and sawing away down in the basement, but I didn't let myself even wonder what it was you were making since you had asked me not to look. Well, while you're beginning the breakfast, I'll be bringing your birthday gift upstairs. Then I can help you. In a short time, when Bettina was arranging the cheerful hollyhocks on the table, she heard a low whistle behind her. There stood Bob, looking like a sandwich man with a brightly flowered cretonne screen draped about him. Well, how do you like it? Oh, Bob, it's the sewing screen I've been wanting, and it just matches the cretonne bedroom hangings. Here are the little pockets for mending and darning materials, and the larger ones for the unfinished work. How beautifully it is made, and won't it be convenient? It will be useful as a screen, and also as a place for those sewing things, for I have no good place at all in which to keep them. It will be decorative too, and how light it is! I can carry it so easily and work beside it on the porch or in the living room. Glad you like it. Ruth designed it, and made the pockets. I did the carpentry work. Bob, it's a lovely birthday gift, and I appreciate it all the more because you made it yourself. How pretty it is with all the woodwork enameled white. I wanted it to match the bedroom things. Well, is that coffee done yet? Tennis certainly does give me an appetite. Breakfast consisted of iced cantaloupe, poached eggs on toast, coffee, applesauce. All right, let's dive into chapters 9, 10, and 11. So these were fun, weren't they? So what do you do when you have sudden overnight guests? Has that happened to you before, where you maybe didn't expect someone to stay the night when they came over for a visit? Well, that's what happened with Bob and Bettina here when Uncle John and Aunt Lucy came by, and ended up that they stayed because of a rainstorm. And I thought it was interesting that Uncle John was so concerned about getting the car in a garage and keeping it covered when rain was expected. And so he was anxiously watching the sky and wanted to get home before the rain came. So I looked up images of cars from 1917, and I was a little surprised. I didn't expect what I saw. Time and again, the images that I saw looked sort of like motorized buggies. So if you can picture what the buggies that maybe um, the Amish use with their that are horse drawn, and they have a canopy on top and they're open on the sides and sometimes partially closed on the back, but it's kind of a soft top. That's kind of what the cars looked like. They had open sides for the most part. Definitely not glass windows in the sides of them. And then also what another thing I noticed was that the tires were very thin and the spokes were very visible. So again, kind of like a wagon or a cart would have been. So the automobiles hadn't advanced all that much in their design yet from the days of the horse and buggy and the horse-drawn carriage and so forth. So that was surprising. So it kind of made me understand more why he wanted to keep it covered. Um, and so they did find a garage that was empty across the street to put it in. That was convenient, right? So they ended up staying the night. And thankfully, Bettina had the guest room ready, and she had given us a tour of her guest room before, and we know what it looks like, and how proud she is of it, and how much she worked to make it attractive and light and bright. It's white and blue, and she also keeps her sewing there and her machine. So it's a dual purpose room for her at this point. But it was ready for the guests, and so Aunt Lucy was eager to see everything about how Bettina had put her home together. So she wanted the full tour. And I don't know if you've been like that before, but my mom and I just loved to tour model homes. Even when I was a little girl, we would go and I would really enjoy it. I like to see them when they're decorated, especially. And so that is a lot of fun for some of us. And I guess Aunt Lucy felt the same. So she was given the tour of the house. And we'll notice also that they took their meal on the porch. And I was happy to see that. They were eating out. And it is nice to be on a porch when it's raining, isn't it? And this is a wide, deep porch. It's as we learned in chapter 1, Bettina and Bob have a new bungalow. And so it's probably one of the craftsman style bungalows that were popular with architects from around 1905 to 1930, and these homes were known for certain features, and one of them was some of the built-ins, and we'll see that in chapter 10 then. A little bit more about that. Let me hold that thought. So the menu. Okay, I don't know about you, and please comment if you've ever had jellied beef and if that appeals to you, because honestly, that does not appeal to me. In fact, it sounds really, really yucky. I hate to say that, but jellied beef just doesn't sound appealing. It was served cold and sliced, and so what it was is gelatin, and inside of the gelatin, which is the same thing you use to make Jello, a clear gelatin, and they would put chopped beef, parsley, and some pimento peppers in there with it. So they also did something. Bettina served another food that was different, and that was peanut butter sandwiches with lettuce. So again, tell me if you've ever had a peanut butter sandwich with lettuce on the bread. Again, that was surprising to me. Fresh crisp potato chips, and I do like to make homemade fries, and I especially like to bake them in the oven. So I like to make large, I don't know, like slivers or large wedges of potatoes, and put them in a big bowl and coat them with some olive oil, some salt and pepper, and maybe a little paprika, and sometimes even a little onion powder or garlic powder. But I like to put them on a cookie sheet then in a hot oven and let them get nice and crispy. So that's the kind of home fries that I like to make. Um, Now she says fresh, crisp potato chips. So I've also done fried potatoes on the stovetop, cut in slices like chips, and those are very good. But again, they're deep fried, so I'm not quite sure how she did hers. But since they're fresh, I think she made them at home. I don't know if packaged potato chips were a thing yet. And I was surprised by the pears, fresh pears for dessert, because I always associate pears with Christmas. I don't know if you do also, but I looked it up and was surprised to know that pears are harvested in the summer from July to September, for certain varieties, including the Bartlett, which of course we've all probably heard of, Bartlett pears. So they do begin harvest in July. So that is just right as far as our timing goes. Um, and then I wanted to talk about radishes because they're very easy to grow in a garden and they're very quick. So if you have children and you want to do like a first gardening project, that's always a really good one for children. The seeds are visible; they're little black dots, but they're big enough to hold on to and plant. And then um, keep them watered, and it's fun for children to harvest them because it's a root vegetable and they can pull them up out of the ground, and they always like to do that, right? So I don't know if you like radishes. Some people do. When I was a child, I used to make radish roses because I had a cookbook that my aunt and uncle gave me, and it had a recipe, or instructions I should say, really, for radish roses. And so what you did is you got a glass of ice water and you put the roses in that in the fridge, and while let them get nice and crispy and cold and chilled. And then um, to prepare them for the water, you would cut them on the top in kind of like uh, lines to indicate the petals of a rose. And then while they were sitting in the water, they would kind of expand open a little, and the inner white part would kind of show through at the top where those cuts were. And so they were called radish roses. And I was always thrilled by that when I was a little girl. Okay, so now chapter 10. Ruth and Fred are the friends that are here. And first, it's just Ruth, and she's asking questions about Bettina's kitchen. So we're focused only on her kitchen in this chapter. And in fact, Bettina calls Ruth a neophyte, which is a funny word for beginner. And she's saying, yes, I'll show you and teach you a bit about the importance of kitchen design. And she says it's a room that we spend so much time in that it justifies careful consideration in its design. And so, therefore, Bettina spent a lot of time thinking how she wanted hers, and she painted the room a pale yellow or a sunny yellow, and the cabinetry was white, and she liked that clean, bright look in her kitchen. And then she liked having a 36-inch high sink, which is the same as mine is, and it is more common, I think, today to have sinks at that height. Her sink was white enamel with a built-in drain board. You may have seen some of those older sinks that are white enamel that are kind of a one piece, and they do have those ridges cut in, not cut in, but formed in to the enamel on the top for draining, which draining water into the sink. So it has a little slope on it. Those are really neat sinks, and a lot of us like those because they're very vintage looking, right? Um, and then I was surprised that she had a paper towel roll because usually she doesn't use so much disposable type things. And she mentioned her fireless cooker again, and she said that she has that mounted on a box just right next to her oven. She also said that she was careful to make sure that her oven was at a good height so she didn't have to stoop over it. And that's one of my complaints about a regular range that you find in the appliance stores now, that almost all of them are, made in such a way that the oven, you have to bend over quite a bit to get into it. So with a little place that I'm designing right now, I was sure to put in a wall oven that is at counter height so that somebody living in there would not have to do too much bending, especially once they're elderly. And that might just be me very soon. I don't know. So then marble topped table is suggested for pastry making, and she says that Ruth already has one of those tables, and she just was commending her for that and saying, hey, you must know that that's really good for doing your pastries. So because I think it stays cool all the time, and that helps with working the dough, or to not overwork the dough, because you want to keep dough chilled when you're doing pastries. And of course, Ruth, she did comment on how charming the breakfast alcove that Bettina has in her kitchen is. And so that is a feature of bungalows, oftentimes, is a little dinette type thing that looks built in, the breakfast alcove. And then, of course, Bettina wants to point out Fred's favorite things: the percolator for the coffee, and which was electric, and then the toaster. And surprisingly, when the toast is described on how to make it in the recipe book here, it isn't what you think, because toasting is not like using a toaster. It is a device that goes over the stove. Let's see, it's right here. It says, toast slices of bread 1/2 an inch thick. Again, you're cutting your own bread slices because pre-sliced bread wasn't a thing yet. So you're cutting your bread into 1/2 an inch thick slices, and you're toasting it on the broiler directly under the flame, or on a toaster fitted for a burner on top of the stove. Brown on one side, then turn and brown on the other. When both sides are an even golden brown, butter one side, care being taken to butter the edges. Set the toast on an enamel plate or tin pie pan in the oven until all the pieces are ready for serving. Always serve toast very hot. So that was fun. All right. And then we have the real necessities of life, according to Bob, are a toaster and bath towels, plenty of bath towels. And for Bettina, the real necessities of life are flowers and a fireplace. So about you, what are the real necessities of life for you? I like the flowers idea, and I really do like a fireplace also, so I think I'm leaning towards Bettina's choices there. And then the recipe was for skyrocket rolls, that Fred wanted the recipe, and Bettina says, yes, I have it in my index card file. And you might remember, probably going to make noise, things are going to fall when I pick this up. So you have a little index box that has tabs in it, and your index cards then would have your recipes on them. So that's what Bettina was doing, keeping her recipes that way. So she said, sure, Fred, you can have that recipe. Here it is. I cut a picture of it out of a magazine and glued it onto the recipe card. And it's really just pinwheel biscuits. And I thought those were neat. It's something you could try very easily on your own. Let's see if I can get to it. Here it is. She made biscuits. So if you have your regular biscuit recipe that you use, you might consider this, and it's kind of like a cinnamon roll in the way that it's produced. So once you roll out your dough, you're going to spread with butter and sprinkle with sugar and cinnamon. And then you're going to press in raisins. And then you roll it up evenly as you would a jelly roll. Cut off slices an inch thick. Flatten a little and place in a tin pan and bake in a hot oven for 15 minutes. So it's a biscuit type of cinnamon roll. All right. So those are probably really attractive, and I bet they're very good. Now, chapter 11, there we find Bob and Bettina together as a couple early in the morning playing tennis. All right, and it is Bettina's birthday, and she wanted to play tennis for her birthday, which was a beautiful choice for her to get out and get some exercise and some fresh air in the morning. And Bob, he decided that wasn't too bad, that he wouldn't mind doing that more. And I think we can really learn from Bettina here, because she exudes joy and appreciation and enthusiasm. And people like that. It's contagious, and I could really learn from her, because I do tend to be a little too serious and somber, and don't necessarily express the joy that I should over the little things as they come along. And I think that it makes people like being around us if we can do that. So maybe we should work on that. Okay. Now, I was surprised that the flowers that Bettina was putting on her table were hollyhocks, because, well, I have a few that I just went outside and got out of my yard. Um, so these are drying now in the July heat. And I must admit, we're not really watering out in that area where they are right now. But that's okay, because hollyhocks tend to like neglected places, roadsides and such. So aren't these just a lovely pink? I just think they're so pretty. I originally got these seeds from some that were growing wild along a road over in a little town nearby. And I would watch them, and as I drove over there, and I would think, one of these days the seeds are going to dry out and I'm going to go snatch some seeds. So I'm going to show you, because I think it's really neat the way these look. So these, I just dumped all the seeds out of this one right here. But this one, it still has its seeds in it. And you can pull that back and take them out, and they're standing up. And what they look like are just these tiny little, ooh, where's my hand? These tiny little, I don't really think I can show that to you. Well, they're these tiny little black things with a little light edge. Yeah, this is what they look like, little wafers, and those are the seeds for from hollyhocks. And again, once these little things like this dry out, see, the seeds are lined up in here, and I love the way they fit in there. I'm going to make my desktop very messy here with this, just so I can show you. See the way they stand up in there. And there's a bunch of seeds, so many seeds. So collect some hollyhock seeds from roadsides, and you'll have some beautiful flowers also. However, they're so tall. These hollyhocks are at least 6 or 7 feet tall. So I did cut the tops off of these two. I'm just trying to picture how she arranged them on the table. So she must have just taken a few of the little top parts and made a bouquet with them, which is just fine. And it was probably lovely. But at first, of course, I was kind of going, what? Hollyhocks, they're giant spires. Okay, so there we go with the hollyhocks. So go scavenge some seeds, and you'll save some money when you forage them yourself. All right. Now, it is Bettina's birthday, and Bob has a present for her. And Bettina's friend Ruth also helped make the present. But Bob has a basement, which now we're just hearing about, and he has a hammer and saw down there. And so he made a wooden frame of some type and painted it white. And it's for a standing screen. And I think hanging from that wood frame, I'm picturing is a cloth with some pockets sewn in it. And Bettina's going to keep some of her sewing implements in those pockets. So what we would think of is maybe like a storage unit, a storage cabinet, maybe something with cubbies, or maybe one of those pocket things that shoes can hang in over the back of doors. Maybe we can picture something like that, because the cloth that's used for the screen on the frame, on the wooden frame, is this fabric that is a heavy cotton, an upholstery type fabric, and they call it cretonne. And I honestly am not quite sure of the pronunciation. Cretonne, Cretonne. So that fabric was what was used for this, so heavy duty fabric. I would kind of imagine kind of like a canvas, maybe even. And the frame was painted white by Bob specifically because he knew that her sewing things were in the guest room, and the guest room colors are white with blue, and the other furniture in there, they've already painted it white. We learned about that, and so he made it to match, which was very thoughtful of him. And it is good to be thoughtful when we're making gifts for others, isn't it? To think of what they might like. And that's what Bob did here. I wonder what you think about making homemade gifts. That is perhaps falling out of favor now, or out of fashion. But is it really? And can it be brought back? I just today finished making a baby quilt for a baby shower I'm going to go to this weekend. And I made it from some scrap material that I had around the house. I ended up buying a half a yard of fabric for the binding, and was so glad that I was able to make the binding with that half yard. Um, but I was also very, very pleased that I was able to make the quilt with scraps of fabric that I already had around here, including a couple of my husband's old shirts. This is for a baby boy, so I did a little bit of flannels and flannel plaids and such. Now, I might take a picture of it and put it on at the end if you'd like. We have our recipes for chapter 11, and those are for breakfast. And they made poached eggs for breakfast. And I just wanted to read you part of that, because poached eggs are not something that I've ever made. It's not something that I grew up with, and my husband didn't either. So it just wasn't part of our American breakfasts here in our little area of the country. But I thought this was interesting. The proper length of time for poaching eggs is until a white film has formed over the yolks and the white is firm. A tin or aluminum egg poacher is very convenient. When using rings, butter the rings, fill each compartment with an egg, and dip into the boiling water. These are inexpensive and economical, as no part of the egg is wasted. So there is some kind of thing. I don't know. I'm picturing like a biscuit cutter, some kind of round tin metal ring that then you can crack an egg into and put it down into the simmering water to cook, to poach, and keep your egg nice and round and have that good shape to it. So they ate poached eggs over toast with homemade applesauce. And that's the last thing there that I want to talk to you about. I went out, as I read that, I thought, oh my goodness, apples. Oh, I forgot. Maybe I should check our tree. And look what I came back with. Yeah. So I think our apples are ready. These were super easy to pick, and they came right off the stems. So I don't know what variety this is. This is an apple tree that was on our property when we bought the property, and we've been here 14 years, I think, and these apples have been there, all that time. This one looks like it's got a little bug damage. These are organic because we don't spray them with anything, and this one's been scratched up quite a bit on the tree. Interesting. But I do love making homemade applesauce, and it's good to check and see what varieties make good applesauce, because they all are specific to different uses. You have apples that are great for pie, you have apples that are good for sauce, and you have different apples or a combination of apples that are good for cider pressing. And then I looked at our Gala apple tree, which we did plant, and it's still young, but it's very tall. And it hasn't really produced but a couple apples in the last year or two. But again, this is a Gala, and I did pick one to show you and to remember. It's so cool to remember that we have those, and I need to water out there and tend to those. I used to love canning apple pie filling. I did that for several years so that then I just had the jars of filling ready to make the pies very quickly. And I loved it when I used to do that because apple pie is a favorite of mine. And okay, so last thing I want to talk about is the going back around to the idea of homemade gifts and handmade gifts. I read a book, and in fact I listened to it on Audible, the audiobook version of it. It is called Made by Hand, and the author is Mark Frauenfelder. The book was copyrighted in 2010, so it's not extremely recent, but I enjoyed it so much. And I think what I really liked is the author, Mark, he experimented with making things, and he hadn't really done much making of things, and he decided he wanted to see if he could, and he challenged himself to make all kinds of things. He made an instrument, he made an espresso maker, he made built a chicken coop. He homeschooled his daughter in her math one year, tutored her for an exam, and he had various success with his different projects, but he learned a lot, and he grew a lot personally through the process of making things by hand. So I would like to leave you with encouragement to consider making something by hand, um, and even perhaps making something for someone else and thinking about what they would like. And so let me know if you've had some success with that. And thank you so much for joining me. All right. God bless you.